parent representatives on the LSC. We are here today to just have a forum to kind of get some thoughts and feedback from families, caregivers, community on our principal search, which we have started. So welcome. I am presenting right now. If you cannot see the presentation, please let me know. If you have questions as we go along, I don't know that I'm going to be able to address every question during the presentation. You can pop them in the sidebar, and I can hopefully get back to you, or I can try to address them later. So that is to start with. Ms. Torres, would you be able to let any of the Spanish speakers know how they can get the translation?
Yes. Para las personas que están aquí, si pueden ver la parte de su computadora donde tienen los 3 datos, y no sé si pueden ver, Kelly, I don't know if you could actually kind of like, I wish you could probably show it. I don't know if there would be something to show on your screen, but
I don't think they can see that screen.
Okay. Entonces, en la parte de abajo donde está donde se puede, está junto al lado donde se puede colgar la llamada, hay 3 botoncitos ahí. Si empuja eso y después escoja donde dice Turn on Captions, está en inglés posiblemente. Si hace eso, puede bajar a escoger el idioma que usted quiere oír, las preguntas que están diciendo, y cuando usted hace eso va a escoger español, y después de eso usted debe de ver todo lo que está pasando en español.
Great. And you
si necesitan ayuda, pues déjeme saber y les trato de ayudar otra vez.
Thank you. Okay, great. So getting started. The purpose of this is to engage stakeholders of Jones to find out what the characteristics they most want in a principal, provide a forum for your voice to help direct the selection process, inform the LSC. We have a number of LSC members on the call. Inform the LSC of family and community concerns and the hopes for the next leader, and have collaborative discussions. The format's going to be a presentation followed by small group discussions with facilitators guiding the questions, and then you guys will share back, each group will share back main points out to the entire group, and we will be listening and taking notes from the LSC so that we know what everybody feels. And sorry. So we have a number of LSC members on the call today. We have Annabelle Sanchez, who's one of our student reps. We have Jason Nupp, who is our chairperson and a parent rep. We have Shabbat Savant, who is a parent rep. We have Raquel Don, who's also a parent rep. I'm not sure if we were able to have Ron Pulley join us. He might be on. And we might possibly have a new, one of our new reps from the community on, Megan Crisco-Flynn. Where we are in the process, anytime you want to know where we are in the process, you can go to the JCP website. There's a sidebar up on the top right corner that says principal selection. If you click on that, there are some links, and there's also a it gives our timeline of our process, and it shows you exactly what we've done and what our next steps are. And there's also links to pertinent documents in there. As of right now, we have a number of applications that we've received that we are reviewing. And on Thursday, tomorrow, at 6 p.m. in the library, we're going to be meeting to vote on the candidates to interview. The discussion about the candidates will be a closed session. We will not be talking about names in public. When we vote on candidates, it will be numbers that get moved through. We will not disclose any candidates until we are down to the finalists, in which case then we will be having a forum to present our finalists to the community. Our feedback that we get from you will be utilized in screening for desired characteristics, experiences, and strengths of our candidates, in developing interview questions, and in our selection decisions. So wanted to briefly, and there's a lot of information here, and I'm going to kind of gloss over some of it, but this is also linked on the web page under the timeline, and we'll be also presenting it again tomorrow at the LSC meeting. But the principal selection survey, this is just a brief overview of the survey to share with you. We had 2 weeks where we asked families, community members, students to fill out a survey and collect responses. It was offered in English, Spanish, and Mandarin. We had 263 students respond, 300 parents, and 2 community members. This is a joint of all of the responses. So overall, rigorous academics and a well-rounded education were the top priorities for what people were looking in the high school. And the bottom one was a culture of service to the community and society as a whole. It doesn't mean that that's not valued by our community, but it was less valued than the other items that were presented here. Give you a second to look at that. And then the next set of questions, this was on a 5-point scale, with 5 being extremely important and 1 being not at all important. And so the most important thing was experience in educational administration, and budgeting were the most important skills valued. And then experience in Chicago Public Schools with a staff size of over 100 and population of over 1,500 were less valuable to our community. But as you can see, everything was overall still important and valued. The next one, set of traits, was establishing and implementing a strong shared vision was the top priority when looking at academic leadership qualities. And then that is followed by uses data to set measurable goals and improvement plans, followed by supports teacher instructional innovations and ensures staff members access to professional development. And the final one is emphasizing support for diverse learners and English language learners. And I would say that this isn't that it's not valued, but it was valued less compared to the other things. And I think that's probably also representative of the population that took the survey. And the next one was looking at cultural leadership skills. The most important here was building mutual trust, followed by commitment to diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment. Then emphasizes JCP's identity as a center of academic excellence, followed by manages student behavior, and then ensures the availability of effective social emotional supports. And leadership skills, when I look at the averages of this whole list, they are all over a 4, which means they were all listed overall on average as important or very important. So ranking them is kind of a minute point, but the strongest one was a strong leader who inspires, motivates, and leads by example, followed by a transparent and responsive with all school stakeholders, and then visible, accessible, and approachable. Those were the 3 most valued. And then there were open-ended comments that people were asked to respond to. What are the greatest strengths of Jones College Prep that you want the next principal to continue to build on or enhance? What concerns do you have about Jones College Prep that you want the next principal to be aware of and take action to address? And what changes or additions would you want a new principal to bring to Jones College Prep? And these responses were grouped by topics that emerged, and they were kind of grouped with, if somebody listed a whole bunch of topics, it was grouped with the first topic. And some summaries of this. So families listed the greatest strengths as academics balanced with other qualities. And the 117 respondents had something to say with a balance of academics and other school qualities, followed by school culture, diversity, quality staff, communications and relationships, school structure, sports, arts, and enrichments. Now, this survey, the responses are also, all the raw data is also available on the website. It is linked into the timeline data, and it will also be saved on our public LSC drive if you want to access it. So you are more than welcome to read the 65 pages of comments that we got. And believe me, those of us on the LSC have read the 65 pages of comments, and it's all super valuable input, and we appreciate it. For students, they talked about the greatest strengths being the school culture, academics, student voice and independence, school structures, diversity, and athletics and arts. As far as concerns, families talked about the school culture being a concern in the last few years, the administration, the diversity, equity, inclusion, maintaining academic standards, communication among stakeholders, followed by school structures. And for students, their concerns started with improving the school day structures and programs. There's been a lot of concern among students very recently about some of the changes that have been made related to ACT Lab and lunch and movement throughout the building. And that was evident in their responses. They also had concerns about, they wanted to strengthen relationships and communication within the school, improve the school culture, including the student accountability, strengthen DEI, and maintain academic standards. With respect to what changes or additions families and community members would want the new principal to bring to Jones, 44 respondents talked about improving the school culture, followed by better or improved leadership, strengthening DEI, maintaining academics, changes in the school structures, followed by investing in sports and arts and strengthening communication. And I apologize that I know I'm going through this fast, but you can access it. And if you have any issues, please feel free to reach out. For students, their changes or additions they'd like to see are identifying opportunities for student autonomy. And as you can see by this comment, bring back old ACT Lab and bring back freedom. It's very top of mind for the students right now. Improving school culture and communication, followed by addressing passing period congestion, investing in academics and programs, updating security procedures, student supports, and addressing DEI shortfalls. So that is a summary of a very large overview of some of the written comments that we've received. So we are going to very shortly move into breakout groups. I'm going to go through real quickly some structures and rules for the breakout groups, and then I will share what the questions are that you're going to discuss in your breakout groups. Each breakout group will have one or more facilitators in the group, and the facilitators will help lead you through the questions, and they will be taking some notes to share with us, but they will also be asking somebody in the group to step up and take their own notes and share back with the group. So if somebody in your group is willing to do the sharing back out and the, I guess, presenting at the end back to us, that would be excellent. That way we can hear it from your words and not from our facilitators' words. So some of the ground rules, just basic golden rule and mutual respect. We all have the same goal. We might have different views on how we get there, but we are all here because we really care about our students and we care about the school and you know, its future going forward. Please allow everyone time to speak. Here, the rule is step up, step back. Step up when you have something to say. Step back when you are done and let somebody else to speak, and just be careful of, you know, being the one that's always speaking. Make sure you're listening as well. All thoughts are valid and important. Even if we don't agree with them, they are valid and important and they are worth hearing. Please avoid focusing on specific things you don't like or that you want to change. For example, ACT Lab policies, lunch, security, tardies, etc. Instead, in this forum, we want to share your vision for the ideal principal leader and what an ideal Jones experience can look like for our students and what type of person would be able to lead us into that. And finally, the parking lot. If you have discussion points that are important but not pertinent to our goals today, our facilitators will indicate to you that they're going to park them by taking note of them and sharing them separately with us, and we will do our best to address them. And with that, our group discussion questions are going to be, we ask that you start with a brief introduction of everybody in your group, your name and your students' grades or your relationship to Jones. And the first question is, what are the must-haves, experiences, and skills for our principal and our school going forward? And some follow-up questions to that is, why are these important? And in what situations do you see this being critical? The next question is, what questions would you ask a principal that is being considered? And then finally, what questions do you have about the process? And our goal today is to hopefully answer the questions about the process and get your feedback on the questions that we're asking so that we can use those in our selection process. If you have any immediate questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. And if there aren't any questions right now, then we will just be patient, and our mighty leader, Troy, is going to be assigning everybody to breakout rooms. It looks like we only have 38 people on the call, so we are going to have more than one facilitator in the rooms. And so if that's the case, maybe one of the facilitators kind of leads and the other ones do more of the note-taking, and you guys can decide that amongst yourselves when you get in the rooms.
So Kelly, I think, ready to go. Every room should have about 4 to 5 people. And we have, I think, all of our facilitators assigned. Pretty soon you'll be split into the different rooms. They are all constellations. And as I said before, you are all stars for helping us out with finding the next principal. So I'll set a timer, and you'll be moved into the next room.
We're gonna go for 6:10 as our time to stop. And yeah, Troy, are you able to give like a
timer? Sure.
Yeah, either a timer or notice that when you're getting close.
And if I did put two facilitators in one room, you should all have your own room. But if by chance you get mixed up, just let me know and I'll move you over. We ready to go?
We're ready to go. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you back in a little bit. Okay, I think we have everybody back in the main room. Welcome back, everybody. I'm sorry if you had to wait a little bit because your timer expired earlier than we intended. Thanks for your patience. Like I mentioned to the other people that were on earlier, technology is not my forte, but we are doing the best we can. So we appreciate that you are patient with us. Okay, so wanted to get some group share outs. If you guys figured out who's going to do your presentation, I'm just going to call on your group name. And if you need a couple minutes, you can ask us to move on to the next one and circle back to you. But we will start with Orion. Do you want to give us an overview of what you discussed? Who's presenting for Orion? You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, Kelly. I thought I did.
Okay, Christine.
Okay. So anyway, this is Christine presenting for Orion. Okay, so for the must-haves, our group came up with what is their experience with large high schools and highly academically achieving students. What is their understanding of having a diversity of students and having experience with that type of environment? And then another must-have, an open line of communication with the parents and students, and also accessibility. So a parent shared that they really thought it was important to have the students have a great amount of accessibility to the principal so that they can, the principal can model the leadership skills that they're trying to impart upon the students. Okay, so number 2, what questions would you ask a principal? So one was, what exactly is your experience leading a large high school? And because you're hiring the whole person, what is your motivation in applying for the role? What are your goals you're trying to achieve for the Jones community? What are their thoughts on Jones, and what ideas do they have for our school? What's the vision? What is their understanding of a selective enrollment school? What type of culture do they want to develop? And how would they want to change elements of the culture that might not be positive? Moving on to number 3, what questions do you have about the process? First one was, are we getting a robust application pool? How long does the process usually take? Is there any time when the finalists have been, after the finalists have been named, to meet with and speak with these finalists? Then would there be any time for these finalists to meet and speak with the community before a selection has been made? So that's our list.
Great, thank you. I'm going to speak to your process questions real quick. So robust application pool, we have 9 applicants that we have been given right now. And we are going to discuss on Thursday which ones to interview and whether we are going to move forward with just interviewing those applicants or whether we might open up the application period again. And we'll make decisions on that this Thursday. It's also possible that we will go down the road with some of these applicants and then decide later we need to open up the applicant pool. I'm not exactly sure, but we are committed to finding the right candidate. We obviously want to do it as expediently as possible, but we will not sacrifice the right candidate for speed. Next is, how long is the process? Again, ideally, we are looking at a few weeks per round of interviews. And so hopefully we would have we would have some finalists in the next 4 to 5 weeks to present. But if we have to put the application out again, then it's possible that that timeline would get extended. And then the finalists, yes, when we are down to finalists, it might just be 1 finalist, it might be 2, it might be 3, whatever that looks like. We will have a forum for students and for community family members, 2 separate forums and 1 for our teachers and staff here at the school. And then we will solicit feedback via a survey and get your thoughts on the finalists that are being presented to you and take that into consideration when we make our final decision. So I hope that answers the questions. If there are more of similar questions, then, let me know if I didn't explain anything fully. But
Thanks, Kelly.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Cassiopeia.
Hello. Yeah, hi. I'm Shabada Savant. I'm a member of LSC, and I'm presenting on behalf of all the parents at Cassiopeia. So we had some really good points. Number 1 was that the principal should be clear of the culture that they want to create. It should kind of be supportive and get everybody involved. Number 2 is we had a few parents who had students who were IEP and 504. So the principal should understand the various learning needs. The third point was the principal should be from an urban area so that they understand the socioeconomic diversity. Number 4 is inclusive decision-making process. So the principal should reach out to stakeholders and to own the decision that they made. Number 5 is the principal should be a good people manager. He should hire well, develop his staff, and empower them. And the last one I have is the principal should not be old-fashioned. He should be able to cater to the needs of students, youth psychology, and make the students feel safe. I think I got all the points.
Great.
Yep.
Were there any questions on the process?
No questions on the process. There was 1 feedback about LSC, but I tabled that. I asked them to send out an email. And yeah, that will be handled separately.
Great. Did you have any questions that you'd ask the principal, or were they just related to these issues?
They were just related to what are the critical characteristics that, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Next, we have Ursa Major.
Hi, so our group had discussed the importance of having someone who has had experience in past administration or by being a former principal. And then also in terms of qualities, parents had discussed also them, a future candidate being, or a future principal being a people's person and someone who can truly relate to youth and also relating to adults as well, so that every person within the school can feel seen. And then also just having a good sense of diplomacy and addressing concerns that parents may have. And as far as for teachers, one parent had emphasized the need for teachers to not be micromanaged in the sense that they have their own creativity to do, not to completely fall under like administration rules in a sense. And then one or some questions that they would ask for a principal that's being considered would be, how would the principal continue the continuity of instruction for teachers? So for they gave an example of, if one student is in English 1 and another student is also in another English 1 class, are they getting the same content? And they have referred to that because their student currently has a first year teacher here at Jones. And they just wanted to emphasize the need for equal content. And then also, what do the applicants know about Jones? So it's knowing the intentions behind as to why they're applying, such as, are they actively looking for a job? Was there an interest in Jones? And it's just more so to see if they had done past research. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And no process questions?
No.
Okay, great. Next we have Draco.
Draco. Yeah, so we had some of the similar points that we've already talked about. For the question where must-haves and what's important, we had community. We really wanted a principal that could bring the community back together, repair trust, things like that. The community building, things like that. One of the other points was better communication. I think that my group at least had an interest to see more emails, more communication, more administration-led emails that communicate what's going on. So another thing was just really strong academics and a vision for Jones, just to keep the academics high. That's always been a positive for Jones, and want to keep that going there. And then just amazing instruction with the teachers. So that's those are the must-haves. The questions we would ask a principal, they were the first ones were kind of around the goals. What do you see for short-term goals as you come in, and then longer-term goals for Jones? So just questions around goals. Another question was around the how will you balance the resources? There's a lot of, for a school the size of Jones and all the things that are going on, it's just important to know how they see the resources being used. Another one is for vision. What's the vision for keeping Jones good at the academics and everything, and all that. And then lastly was what is the vision as an educational leader? What distinguishes Jones from other schools? So kind of just, what do you see the vision of Jones and how that compares to the other college prep schools that are in Chicago? So questions on processes were just kind of around the timeline, which we talked about already. So timeline and then that pool of applicants, what it looks like. So
great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, our next one is Aries.
Yeah, that's my group. Sorry. Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm sharing. So in terms of experiences, must-haves, the first was allowing for options when it comes to arts and electives. So students don't feel like they're being constricted to a certain path or anything like that, and just support for that, which kind of goes into support for teachers. Which we kind of would we emphasized having teacher experience, just because that's something that to build good rapport between the principals and teachers, and ultimately getting that support that's needed. Another thing we talked about was having charisma. It's this principal is a leader. They're a public person. We want to draw students into the school and inspire students to be someone like the principal. That's ultimately one of the goals of a leader. We'd like the principal to not be in their office 24/7. not meaning like not in the school, but not in the office, as in like, you know, they're in the building, they're walking through the schools, they're building community with the students, not in a way where it's like, you know, oh, like come to my office for detention, but you know, asking how they're doing, what they're doing in their classes, things like that. Not that that's that's happening, but you know, just anyways. And then another thing we talked about was CPS prior experience, just because CPS is kind of daunting to be in. It's a confusing place to be. As with the connection between the mayor, the CTU, and just it's an interesting in between. So it's important that someone isn't naive and knows kind of how to manage that. And the last two things that we talked about for must-haves were to push more activity during ACT Lab, maybe more structured SEL during Eagle Labs for students who may be introverted or things like that, where they can feel like they can, where an environment is cultivated to where those students can feel motivated to speak and motivated to, you know, express themselves. And then the last thing was just kind of, this has been emphasized a lot, but communication. An example was given from another school of emails given Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then a monthly email with like a heartfelt, thoughtful letter from the principal. And the emails are like categorized by different parts of the school, whether that be academics, athletics, arts, whatever that may be. And then, yeah, so that was it for must-haves. Questions we have for the principal would be to, how do you support teacher-led initiatives, or how have you, probably more importantly. And then what can the principal do to solve problems with racial discrimination? And then how can a principal prepare students for post-secondary pathways, as ultimately it's a college prep school? And then another question they had about we had one question about the process, but it was more a suggestion, if possible. Kelly, if you could just kind of walk through the timeline. It's probably a lot of places, but it's better and probably better received if we can just hear you talk about it, hear you kind of walk through how the selection process is going, where we're at, although you kind of did some of that, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, great. So I realize that it is 6:30, and in the interest of your time, if you need to leave, please feel free. We have 2 more groups left to present. I want to let them present, and then I will give I'll try to address Emmett's question about a little bit more detailed description of the timeline after they present. If you're able to stay on with us for a little bit longer, I appreciate it, but I also understand if you need to run, because we did say that this would end at 6:30. So I'm going to go ahead and let Gemini present next.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. My name is Beju Valde, and I am presenting for Gemini. Some of our few things that we wanted as our must-haves were, we wanted an inspirational leader, someone who has great cognitive and emotional intelligence. I think that was one of the big things we looked at. We want somebody who has a shared vision and wants to support the teachers, as everyone has said, and also supports the arts and looks at diversity, both whether it's from a 504 plan, IEP, or race, and truly can embrace that in a public school, in a city public school. So those are kind of our must-haves. So, and then along the line of questions that we would ask were, how long have you been teaching? Who is a leader that you would emulate? Who is somebody you would look up to, and what kinds of qualities does that person have that you want to be like? Have you ever dealt with a difficult budget? How do you do budgeting? How do you prioritize if you have the same amount of resources, for example, a boys baseball team versus a girls softball team? How would you do those kinds of things? And maybe sometimes starting with an open-ended question and then going with the closed-ended questions. Also, what is a common problem, something that we've dealt with in our own system, in our own community, and how would you deal with that problem as an educator? And what is your pitch? What would be your elevator pitch if you were in an elevator and you had to tell somebody why they should pick Jones as the best, most prestigious selected enrollment school? What would be your elevator pitch? And then also, being again a Chicago public school, we have to deal with racial issues, politics, and how would you say that you have had to deal with that in the past, and how would you navigate it for the future? Do you have a preference of being a network high school versus an independent high school? And what vision would you have in both of those circumstances? Also, one more question. If you had to choose a single book for every freshman to read before they attend Jones, what would that be and why? They may not have to read it. I'm not trying to give extra homework to all the kids who attend Jones. I'm just mentioning that. And again, how would you enhance / preserve Jones's prestige and reputation so that we can be the best in the country?
Those are great. Thank you. Yeah, some of those are very innovative questions. I appreciate that. Were there any process questions?
The main one is once somebody gets selected, is it based on a timeline of how much experience they have as to whether we will stay in network school versus an independent school? Are they quote unquote on timeline or something crushed before all that happens?
So to answer that one briefly, independent school is a designation given to principals after a certain amount of time. I don't know what that time is, but they are not granting it anymore. So if this principal doesn't come in with an independent school designation, which I think there are very few that still have that designation, they're not, it's not something that they're granting right now going forward. I do not know if they're revamping that process or if they're going to be, I don't know how they're addressing that, but they have phased it out. Troy just put in the chat that there are 6 ISPs within CPS right now. I know a lot of ISP principals have left within the last 3 or 4 years. And so they're just not replenishing that for various reasons, I think.
Thank you.
Oh, great, thanks. And our last one is Aquarius.
I guess the pleasure in going last is all the good things have already been said. Beju, I nominate you to be in charge of the interview question writing. Those were amazing. I'm going to go to the second question first. The questions to ask the principal being considered. The first thing that we wrote down was situational questions. We were very general. You got into some very good specifics. But I do think trying to ask someone, here's a situation, how would you handle it, is really, really insightful because it's a really hard job. And you have to learn how somebody's going to think and react in very difficult situations. So Beju gets to write the interview questions. Read down why this job at this school at this time, what is your vision, and what would be your 100-day plan? As far as skills and experiences, I think the only thing that I would add, because I think everything else has already been said, is really that understanding how to get students, teachers, parents to move in the same direction and really buy into that shared vision and understand their role in the execution of that shared vision. And then the last thing I'll say is the visibility. This has been touched on before, but somebody had a really great example and they said, when the principal is visible, that leadership is seen by everyone, it's experienced by everyone, and it provides motivation and encouragement and support to the students, to the parents, and to the teachers. And then you get people, right, moving in the same direction. Like when you build that relationship, you have to be visible in order to build that relationship. So that's it.
Great, thank you, Mary Claire, we appreciate it. Is there anybody that I missed calling on? Was there any other groups? Please speak up, because I think I got everybody, but in the event I didn't, let us know. Okay, this was excellent feedback. Thank you very much for participating. I'm going to take 2 minutes right now and answer the question about the timeline being a little bit more specific. Like I said, tomorrow we are going to have a discussion in a closed session and evaluate the candidate applications that we have received. We have received 9. We are going to decide amongst ourselves on the LSC which of those candidates we would like to interview and whether or not we are going to open up the job application again or move forward with candidates that we already have at this point. We will get those interviews scheduled in the next couple weeks. We have the following week next week being a holiday week, and we already have a couple other meetings and stuff scheduled for that week for the LSC. In terms of, we have a training on how to effectively interview scheduled, and we also have a budget committee meeting. So we're going to try to get scheduled for those initial interviews. Sorry, and then so hopefully in the next 2 weeks we will have another special meeting and be able to vote through who we're going to move to the second round of interviews. Second round of interviews, I would say, just to give a cushion, assume another 2 weeks there, and then we ideally we do it as quickly as possible, and then we would have another special meeting. And you guys are sensing a trend here, a lot of special meetings, and then we would vote through who would be our finalists. At that point, we would arrange to have forums for the finalists to address the community, the students, and the staff at the school. And then after the forums, we would solicit feedback via surveys to get everybody's thoughts. And then we would meet again as a special meeting, unless we can time it with a regular meeting, and vote on who to extend a contract to. If at any point in time we do not feel confident that we have the right person, we will repost the job. So that's an ideal timeline, assuming one of these candidates is the right person in our mind. So I hope that answers the questions. The timeline is being updated as we can solidify dates. So Troy posted the link to our page on there where you can see the timeline, and you can check back, because as soon as I have dates or documents that are pertinent to things, I will add them to that, and you can access them through the links on there. So feel free to check it, and you can always email us. The last thing on my, is, jonescollegepreplsc@gmail.com, kelly.joneslsc@gmail.com, and then the link for the principal search as well. And Corinne asks, can you specify family, community, roles, voice in the process from here? So at this point, we have priorities that we're going to use to vet the candidates, and then your next voice will be when we have our finalists and hearing your thoughts on the finalists. Thank you guys, everybody. We appreciate it. Sorry for going over a little bit. We appreciate everybody's time and feedback, and it's super valuable. And thanks. We hope to see you again.
Hey, Kelly, I just want to add something. Unless, correct me if I'm wrong, but if anyone does want to come to our stop at the table at back to school night, the LSC will be there to voice your thoughts and get feedback or ask any questions. So that will be available at back to school night, which I hope everyone can attend.
Absolutely. Yep. We're going to have a table somewhere on the main lobby area. So look for us. Great. Thank you guys.